How's everybody doing? No, I'm not a stand-up comedian. I'm a morel hunter. All right, I'm here to talk about morel hunting because it's going to kick off here in the Omaha area in probably about, another 10 days. They're already starting to find them in Brownville. And if you live in the East Coast, I know this is being simulcast. If you're in the East Coast, then they're already finding them along the East Coast, Indiana, Kentucky, all those areas. Georgia usually starts, the morels start usually in right around the end of February there. Anyone here morel hunter? I know that we got a couple here and we got a first timer there, so. All right, well, what you really want to do when you're out morel hunting, if you've never done it, they're seasonal, usually April 15th in the Omaha area, April 15th until approximately the end of May. And they'll start down in the river bottoms, along the river is where you want to go. The best place to look would be along dead cottonwoods, about 100 yards in from the river. You don't want to be right on the river. I had someone ask me, when you say the river, do you mean in the river? No, it's along the way there. This picture here is about what you're going to see when you're early morels. This picture was early season a couple of years ago. And this is some morels actually my wife found. And I'm starting to feed back. I've got my sound tech there. Move it down. Okay. Technical difficulties, please stand by. Let's try that. Is that any better? Or I can hold it. I'm just going to hold it. How's that? Is that better? All right, we'll just hold it. This is as soon as we get our picture back. All right, there we go. All right, as soon as early season morels, this is what you're going to see. No, we need some mic, I guess. They're not hearing anything. Check. I'll try it here this time. Try that. Is that better? Can you hear that? Okay. All right, these are actually pretty small right here. I mean, if you look at them, these are probably a ½ inch to an inch tall. We had to zoom in, but this is what you're going to find early season, and they're real difficult to see, but at least you don't have any undergrowth, so they're going to be a little easier to spot. These were under a dead cottonwood tree. So when you get around the dead cottonwoods, spend your time looking. And what I like to tell people to do, when you find a spot where you find one morel, stay there for a little while. You want to crisscross. I do what I call a star pattern when I find one morel. I'll do a star. I'll walk 20 feet in each direction and crisscross and walk back and forth. And the reason I do that is every angle that you come in and look for morels, you're going to see a different angle where they're hiding under a leaf or something like that, and they're elusive. It's like they're hiding from you on purpose, especially in the early season because they're so small. So you want to kick back and forth and just take your time. So when I find my first morel, what I'll do is I'll take my water bottle and I'll put it down next to it. And when I do that, at least I know my first reference point, and then I'll just walk in a star pattern around there. A little later in the season, this is what you want to find right here. They're a little easier to spot. Now these are about 5 inches, 6 inches tall. So these, again, they're going to start in the lower, along the river. They'll be down along the river for about 2 to 3 weeks, and then they'll start to progress up toward the hillside. So the terrain gets a lot rougher. I will give you some guidance here. You want to wear something waterproof, a waterproof hiking shoe, something like that, because your feet will get soggy if you go out early in the morning. What I do is I used to go out and, before I got waterproof shoes, I've been doing this for 50 years, so I would put plastic bags around my feet and go out there because the morning dew would just soak your socks, and then you're miserable the rest of the day. Ticks have been a real problem as well. Last year, the deer ticks were bad. For about every morel I got, I probably came home with 10 ticks, so it was an ongoing deal. Get some if I just I have no problem using DEET. I just spray myself down completely. I know that it's not for everyone. If not, skin's so soft, or there's some stuff that's a little gentle, but the ticks are nasty, and that's just all part of it. You just got to be aware of that. So this right here, when I say in the dead trees, this is a dead cottonwood tree right here. This is an ideal tree to find. This is what you want to look for. And I like to shop trees from across 40, 50, 200 yards. And I know when I go out, I'll look at a tree. I'm kind of like the tree whisperer. I'll look at a tree and I said, there's morels under that tree, and we'll hike all the way over there. And sure enough, 9 out of 10 times I'm right. When everyone goes, are you sure? I don't want to walk all the way over. We get over there, and sure enough. But if you notice the way this tree looks, it still has the bark. It's freshly dead. That's what you want. It's got some dead vines on it. You don't want a tree that is completely stripped down and doesn't have any bark on it, because the morels have long moved from that point. A tree like this will be good for 1 or 2 seasons. But if you spot a tree like this, especially if in the forest, whether you're on state park, any place like that, I know some people go to 2 rivers around here, or any state park you go. This is, again, a dead cottonwood, but you'll find them under dead ash, dead elm. They've been under apple trees. It's no rhyme or reason. It's just an interesting thing. But if you picture this and get this in your head, where you look at this kind of tree when you're looking at the woods, everyone looks down, but I always say make sure you look up and read those trees, because it's an important part of it. This is a, right here, I recommend using a knife when I find them, some sort of harvesting knife. Notice the curved blade on this. It's easier to cut them down near the ground, not to mention anyone that's hunted morels knows that everyone's going to try to find out where you're going whenever I go. And I've gotten pretty good at it over the years. I cut them down low, and I go ahead and I kind of cover them up. So at least I know where I am, but I'm not going to leave a trail for someone else to find where I am. So, which brings up another point. If I come across a place, and this is getting more popular every year, and I see a couple of stems, I'm not going to leave it alone. I just get more excited for it. So what I do is, they didn't get them all. So I'll start my little star walk, and I'll do all that. And I usually pick up another 5, 6, 12 morels that they just missed, because a lot of people, they won't take the time to do it. And so I've actually found one that's huge. I found one about this tall. It was gigantic. And the nice thing about that morel was it was right next to all these stems. So don't ever give up on it. That's the guy I found right there. He was next to these stems, and they just completely missed it. So I'm going to have to stand over here because I feed back when I get over here. So this was, again, how did they miss this? It was huge. So, and what I like to do, I know I like to get up early in the morning. You want to take plenty of water with you, take some snacks. I get up at sunrise, and I'll stay out all day. Get ready to walk about 12 miles if you're serious about it. You'll come back with a lot of mushrooms. If you get a huge season, which we usually try to do, a lot of people don't know you can store mushrooms for up to 20 years. What you do is there's a number of different ways to do it. I like to use a dehydrator. You use a dehydrator, cut them in half. Don't rinse them, don't clean them. Just cut them in half, lay them on the sheets. Go ahead and dry them overnight till they get dry like a potato chip. And as soon as they're dry, you put them in a storage bag, seal it, sealed Tupperware, something like that. Put them in a cool, dry place. They'll keep literally 18 to 20 years. It's amazing. They kind of have that cactus characteristic to it. So if you don't eat them, that's true. And then when you're ready to use the morels again, because it's fun to eat them all year round, just put them in a bowl of water, hydrate them again for about 4 to 5 hours. You want a big bowl so you can take like a dinner plate and put it on top, because you want to weight them down so they're all underwater. They'll regain about 80% of their size. So to give you an idea, a pound of mushrooms will can knock down to about 1.5 ounces. Literally, that's how much they dry. So it's pretty amazing. So 1 gallon bag of morels would be like having 15 pounds when they're dry. So they're compact and they're good to have. There's a couple I was lucky enough to find, and the Budweiser was there with it. No, but this is a good example of the end of the season morels. As you work your way in the hills, they're going to get bigger and bigger. There are other morels that I would warn you about. It's called a false morel. It's a red color, has the same characteristics of this, only it's these beef eater ones that look real are solid. So if you pick one up, first time I found one years ago, I was all excited thinking, wow, look at this. It was huge. And I found out, no, they're very poisonous. So a good rule of thumb is if they're red, you're dead. Although some people have actually figured out a way to cook those morels to those beef eaters so they get the poison out, but I just don't want to deal with them at all. So when you're out hunting like this, though, and you want to eat them right away, the best way is to go ahead and to cut them in half. And another nice thing about that harvesting knife, you cut the dirt off the bottom, so that's one less thing you have to deal with down the road. So that makes it, when you go to clean, it makes it so much easier. You just cut them lengthwise, cut them in half, soak them in a bowl of water. It'll get all the bugs off. Rinse them good, and you put salt, add the salt to it, and the bugs don't like the salt either. Don't let them sit in there overnight. Rinse them a couple of times, wait a half hour, do it again, and then do it again. You don't want them to get soggy is the point. So if they get soggy, then they're just not going to be as good. When you go ahead and prepare them, there's a number of different ways, and they're very addictive. Anyone that's had knows about the taste, the flavor. It's just unbelievable. But the way I know my wife and I, Mary Frances, who I real meaty taste to them. Some people have bred them. I'm not a real fan of that. It's off it, because that'll mask the morel flavor. You can scramble them in eggs. Oh, I could morel scampi and on and on. So, but it's just a blast to do. .com. I do all these carvings. I've just been into it. These sticks that I have in the back, these hiking sticks, are just an example of that. And some of these are actually cast from a real morel mushroom. But it's kind of neat because if you have one of these, you get acclimated to what you're looking for in the woods. Plus, you can clear the brush and all that. So they come in handy. As a matter of fact, one company has these in the national catalog. They've been getting quite a few from me, and it's hard to keep up, but I keep sending them out. Those are $40. And something else you might always need that I recommend is this mesh bag. A lot of people will use plastic, so you can even use a potato sack, onion sack, something like that. You want to have the advantage to this is it's going to let all the bugs out when you get them. They won't dry, they won't get soggy, and in my opinion, they will spread the spores. And the reason I firmly believe this is because we've walked out on a hard dirt path before every season. Now there's nothing but a hard dirt path, no woods, anything around, and every time we'd walk out with the bags of mushrooms like this, we would find them growing in that path. And they're convenient, they're small, they fit in your pocket. I can pack a couple of them with me in case you find that one load. They have an expandable ring in them that holds the mushrooms out, and you're good to go. And then it will stretch. And the nice thing again, though, it leaves the bugs. It's not going to rip. This is a really strong nylon. I've gotten this caught on many things. It'll pull. And again, you can pack about 4 or 5 of these with you without even knowing it's on you. So when you do find them, then off season, there's your green grocery shopping bag, right? This is 2 seasons ago. I found these. These were all under one tree, so there's really no rhyme or reason. Sometimes you find yellows. You usually find small grays in the early season. Picture of this. And we were just having a blast. That was a fun year. So these were so big that some of the big ones, what I did was I cut them down in half, sauteed them just a little bit, and literally laid one over a ribeye, over the whole top, and it was fantastic. So delicious. And these were really fresh. So there's records. You're going to see if you look nationwide, people are finding 16-inch tall, pound-and-a-half mushrooms. They're out there. There's all types. Now, right now, if you want to keep an eye on what the morels are doing, just Google Morel Mushroom Sightings Map. It'll bring up a map. They'll show little dots, and you'll see how it starts in the Georgia area, and it starts creeping up Indiana. And right now, they're just hitting Missouri, and they're coming into, I heard yesterday or 2 days ago, they found them in Brownsville, little ones, probably about 10 days away right here. And then it's just going to, I can tell you last year was a little bit of a slower year. This year is going to be fantastic. It's all about ground temperatures. You want your ground temperature, ideally for a morel, to be around 52 to 55 degrees. You don't want it to get too hot, right? And the moisture is perfect. I think we're going to have just a stellar year. It's going to be fantastic. That's another good sign. She said we found dandelions. When I see dandelions, I know that they're coming and they're starting to show. Yeah, it's a good sign. It's always worked well for us on the dandelions. You can tell the trees are starting to bud a little bit. That's another good sign. What will really mess up and hurt a morel season are some of the years where it starts to warm up and then we get a freeze again. Then it starts to warm up. It's confusing the whole process. This is just a perfect year right now. I feel it. I plan on getting thousands and thousands of pounds. So, but it should be a good. And you can, I've just started a page on Facebook, Morel Mushroom Supply. You can find it on there, and I'll put postings on there. If you want a card at the end of this and you're new at it, take one of my cards, call me. I love talking about them. It's never a problem for me to give you advice on it. We've been doing this for so long. We actually had 4 reality shows contact us about doing a show. Did some interviews, one represented Nat Geo, and nothing happens yet, but we don't care. We're just going to go hunting with or without the cameras. Actually, I don't want them to know where I'm going anyway, so it all worked out. My wife, Mary Frances, this was a couple of years ago where we found you see the yellow one she had in her hand. They're all connected. We couldn't stop picking them. It was unbelievable. We were like in a gold mine. It was unbelievable. Kept looking around. Nobody was around. We stayed there all day and picked mushrooms like that, and it was so much fun. This is what I look like at the end of 12 hours in the woods with one bad knee. I'll crawl out and still bring them anyway. Yes. And no, those aren't birds flying around my head. Those are little buds on a branch. It looks like the birds are attacking me there. But you can see the yellow fresh ones, and they're just ideal. If anyone wants to know, you always hear that a mushroom will pop up overnight or what have you. I know some people that have actually filmed the whole process. They'll find the little morel, they'll put it on a time lapse, and they'll film it for a week. They're growing the whole week. A lot of people, I've actually had this when I did a seminar at a sporting show, say, oh no, we saw them pop up. They were popping up all around us. And when it started to rain, I said, no, what's happening is they were already there. The rain is pushing off some leaves that weren't there before, and it just appears that way. Now, they do grow quickly, but it's not going to be that quickly. So, and there's the fun part when you get them home and lay them on the table. It's better for the morel. I like to leave the stem. This is how you want to soak them, like that. Those are all cut in half. That'd be the same type of bowl you'd use to rehydrate them if you dehydrate them. And our friend, the frying pan, little garlic, fresh garlic and some butter. And you don't want to go too long with them. They'll get rubbery. Just bring them down in size a little bit. You'll be able to tell. Keep sampling them. Keep tasting them. Sometimes a little red wine on the side never hurts. All right, that's basically it. And then I know I got a little group here, and there's some people over here. If you have any questions, I'm sure there's a ton of things I haven't covered. Yes? The best time to go out is what she is asking. The best time to go out and where are the best places. Best time to go out in this area is going to be in about another 10 days. They're going to start hitting this area. They've already started. You can start looking early, because just because I said that doesn't mean there won't be some up. They are finding them in Brownville, Nebraska right now. And we found them early. And you'll also find out that when someone says something that they're not finding them, they're lying to you. They're finding them. They're not going to tell you. You can also get on it's called the Morel message board. If you Google that, it tells you every state who's finding them, where they're finding them. Morel message board. Get on there. Around here where you want to go, I would go anywhere you can access along the Missouri River early on. Elkhorn, the Platte, if they'll let you on there. And then again, as the season progresses, another place you can go is state parks if you have trouble getting to land. Loess Hills State Park is 400 square miles, so you can find a lot of areas. Yeah, any of those places, absolutely. No, you can, no, that's not a bad question, though. She wants to know if you can only go out when it rains or afterwards. After it rains, you want that sunlight to come in, warm things up a little bit. That's ideally what you want. Yeah. Not on the banks, no. Okay. All right, the question was, how far do you look as far as actually on the river or how far back? I would say about 50 yards on past the... Well, we're talking about, 150 feet. Yeah, 150 feet to, it could be 300 feet. Not right on the banks. You will find them there sometimes, but you want to get further away. And you can actually tell when you feel the sponginess of the leaves. You don't want to be where it's too sandy. And by the way, the river bottom ones, if you get too far down, they're going to be really sandy. They're a lot harder to clean. I prefer it's like eating oyster stew where you get that sand crunch every now and then, although you think you get it all, and it's not much fun. But we just don't chew them, we just swallow them. Yeah. Well, if you're familiar with cottonwoods, look around dead cottonwoods. Along the river here in this area, that works really well. When you get up in the hills, elms, ash, even apple, ideally, and you can tell, too, the way you feel. Again, if that tree is too dead, this one still has all its bark on it. That's the beauty of that. You want them that have at least that much. You want something that's freshly dead, or you can find a tree like this that still has a couple of green branches on it.
Oh, so if they're laying over and dead on the ground.
You'd look for them like this. You can, if they're freshly downed from a storm and the trees go down, yes, because there's been areas where a farmer cleared all these cottonwoods and actually bulldozed everything down. And I guess 2 years later, they were finding hundreds and hundreds of pounds around them. Yeah. So, but you want to feel, you can tell by when you're in a mushroom area and when you get really good at this, you can literally smell them. You can actually smell that musty kind of smell. You can smell them. I'm getting excited. See, this is the only thing that gets you past tax time. You know, everyone's all bummed out because of taxes, and I don't care. You know, I'll cry about that later. Yeah. They just like any dead wood. It's just not per se the cottonwood. It's just as the trees die, they start to surface. It could be any. Again, and just to make it clear, sometimes you'll just find them in the middle of a grass field because those pores and the wind, and they can carry. And someone that walks out with a mesh bag, anything like that, you can spread them. But generally, another thing I'll do in a tree like this, if you look up, I've had really good luck with this, and you'll see how the branches will go way far out. I'll actually trace those branches to see where they're going along the ground and go out. So make sure when you're around the tree, just not around the base, look clearly and go all the way around it. And again, crisscross that whole area, because I guarantee you're missing some. If you find some, you're missing them. They're just, I don't know. I drive people crazy because it took me, this many years to not tell anyone where I'm going. But you can do it. And you guys are welcome to get a business card if you have questions when you're hunting them. My cell number's on there. Love talking about them. Just give me a call. I'll be happy to share any knowledge I can with you on that. So. Okay, as far as my experience finding them in the same spot year after year, you're going to find that the general area of the woods may be good, and I'm talking 50 square acres, something like that, but the same tree is only going to yield for about a year or two, and then that's done. Once the tree gets so far gone to where all the bark's off it, it's done, that source is exhausted. So you want to find freshly dead or nearly dead trees. That's going to be ideal. Well, there's a lot of theory on this. As the tree's dying, they're feeding off the root system, and they start to surface the morels, looking for a new source, and then they move on from there. So it's here's the thing. You can't grow morels commercially. You'll see everyone that says they can. There wouldn't be such a frenzy for them if you could. There just wouldn't be. Yeah.
So I've seen some videos where these people make this like slurry.
And they spray it.
They spray it.
I don't believe any of it. You know what? They wouldn't be making that video. They would be living in a big mansion in Maui if they were doing that. I don't buy it. So they just can't duplicate it. There's just one of those things. And by the way, they grow worldwide. A lot of people don't realize that. They found them in Hawaii before, Alaska. About the only place I haven't really heard of them find them is Florida. They still find them in northern Texas, places like that, Turkey. I have people contacting me on my website wanting to sell me hundreds of pounds. Although our website's called morelmushroomsupply.com, we don't sell the morels there. We just sell all the hunting supplies and different carvings and things, yard ornaments and things like that. Wine corks that look like a morel. Check out the website, morelmushroomsupply.com. There's a lot of cool stuff on there. You had a question? I'm sorry. Not yet, no. I haven't even gone out. Not really. More like Michigan, you're going to find black mushrooms in areas like that. Each area, each state kind of has their own characteristics. Here you're going to find the early grays. And they're going to kind of resemble this a little bit. These are real tiny that I have on the screen right there. So, yeah, I go out, I pretty much can tell when they're going to come out just from my experience doing it, and I'm thinking about another 8-9 days, I'm going to be hitting it every day. Absolutely. You had a question, yeah. What level of bushwhacking do I do? Well, I haven't taken a machete out with me yet, but those sticks are nice for clearing it. I've crawled under briars and all kinds of things to get to them. I've come back all scratched up. What's kind of interesting about a morel, if the grass gets really tall, like about a foot tall or something, as the undergrowth is getting thicker, I've actually seen the stems grow to that length, and they'll just surface. So That's a good point, though. When you're going through the woods and it's up to your knees, just look straight down when you're walking and make sure you look down because they're hard to spot. And then once you do, start clearing it, and again, you'll be surprised. We found a lot like that before, I know, where we just kept looking for them. But I've found them with the morel was this tall and the stem was like this before. They just were trying to get to that sunlight, so they were fighting it. So.
What vitamins or like health factors good stuff for you?
Medicinal purposes for morels. They've got vitamin B. A lot of people don't know that. Vitamin D, iron. They're finding out they're known to prevent prostate cancer or help prevent. So they're getting all these medicinal type things in them. No one's smoked them yet. Don't try that. Yes.
In your opinion, which state was the most expensive?
Which state? As far as morels? They all, as far as the cost of them? They're all about, you're going to find they're usually $35 to $50 a pound when people buy them. In Indiana, they have a big festival in Indiana. At the end of the season, people that don't know how to hunt them, that just want them, they go to this auction. They're paying $9,900 a pound for them. And people show up there, the experienced hunters with 100, 200 pounds, and they are just smiling ear to ear because they still sell all those and they still have plenty for themselves. So, yeah, I mean, if you're motivated by that.
So Indiana's probably a good state to hunt.
Indiana's a good, strong state. Ohio's really good. Upstate New York's good. I used to live in upstate New York, so good luck hunting. Get out there and get them and sell them.
Do you sell any of yours or do you keep them all?
You know, I used to, but my wife won't let me anymore. Well, she doesn't give them to them either. Should we? No, what we do is my wife's one of 15 brothers and sisters. We've got about 180 immediate family in the Omaha area alone, so we invite them over for morels quite a bit, so they're fun.
So if you find a small one or a big one, does it affect the taste at all?
Well, Cammie wants to know if you find the small mushroom or a large morel, does it affect the taste? I think that the smaller ones have a better flavor to them when they get a little bigger. However, I used to think that. Then, when I found those, they were so fresh and so large, they tasted like the young ones. So I think what really affects them when you're finding them bigger later in the season, a lot of times they're getting dried out. If you're lucky enough to find them, and I think it's going to be that kind of season, where they're fresh like this, they're going to be every bit as delicious. Which it brings up another point, too. When you do dehydrate them and hydrate them back, you're going to lose a little bit of the flavor. There's no better way than fresh to enjoy them. Although, I'll still take the almost as good, because it's just good. Yes?
Since you got that picture up there, have you noticed a difference between the
You know what? I really didn't. I would say that the yellows have, if I were going to say the ones that are darker, like toward the up near my wrist, I seem to like those a little bit better. I think they just taste better. But they're all pretty much the same type of flavor. Not much variance there. And these were all under the same tree area, which was really interesting because usually you'll find grays together or woodsy ones together, all this. These were all in the same area. So it was pretty good. Yeah.
So if you were to head to a big forest area, you didn't really see any real dead standing trees, would you still hunt that area?
All right. So if I come to a forest area where I don't see any dead trees or...
But we're talking like 100 acres and you're not...
I'll keep looking till I find them. That's another reason I like to look up and far away. If I don't see any dead trees, because they'll stand out like a sore thumb from a long distance away. No, I'm not going to hunt where there's not dead trees. I'm not. No.
By the way,
And I'll meet you back.
some sightings in Springfield today. They said dark.
I knew they were coming because 2 days ago they were in. Yeah.
You're gonna have to wait for 9 days.
No, that's what I said. Go out earlier if you can. No, did I say they start June 1st in Omaha? That's when you want to go out. There is. I just started a Facebook page. It's Morel Mushroom Supply, and then I'll put postings when I'm finding throughout the year there. So, yeah.
What else do you have on your website besides this?
I do carvings. I've got the harvesting knives. I've got different bags, rain gauges, Morel rain gauges. You can get on the site and look. It's morelmushroomsupply.com. Just Google it. You'll see all my stuff on there. You name it, we make it. Well, I'll put something. Well, here's what I do. I'll take, as far as ticks go, I'll take a windbreaker, something like that with a hood, something lightweight like a light raincoat, and I'll tie that hood around me because they'll slide off. But you're not going to escape all the ticks. You just gotta be ready for it. Yes. Did you have one, or did you have another one? Not really. They're just going to move up in the hills. That's the nice thing. Then you're not just locked into along the river. Then you can start finding them in the hills. So as the season moves on, you're just not going to find them when they do move to the hills. You can find them most anywhere. You don't have to be near a body of water. As long as we're still getting good moisture. Once it starts to get too warm and too hot, then it's going to start to fry and ruin the. You don't want to see it get in the 80s too soon, something like that, because it's a sad time of year. Yes. This year is going to be my best year. The year that I showed you earlier, that was one of the best years I've had, where my wife was holding the 3 large morels. This was just the stellar year. And if you notice the terrain, you can see the undergrowth there and all that. But there were a lot of dead trees there, and it was just, I'll never forget this year. We went back to the same area for 3-4 days in a row, and then my wife couldn't join me, so I went back another 3 days, and we got hundreds and hundreds out of that area. That was unreal. Yeah. Right.
Earlier in the year, it's more like ground cover, and you can see them really easy. But you're still digging through that tall stuff.
Right.
Finding them in there. There's no point where is there any point in the year, I guess, that you know that they're not going to be popping up anymore?
When it gets that overgrown, and he wanted to know, I got to say this for the camera too. He wanted to know whether when the undergrowth is getting so tall, do you pretty much give up on that? When it gets up to that point, then move to the hills. When you move to the hills, it's going to be like that anyway. It's going to be a lot harder hiking too, because you're climbing up inclines and everything else. But there's some great ones in the hill. That's where they find those monsters, by the way, in the hills. I had a friend of mine that lived near Blair. This was years ago. He was just walking along, and he looked over at this morel. He thought it was a morel. He looked over and looked back and had to take another look. I mean, it was 50, 60 feet away. It was like this. This was years ago. He took it. They put him on the front of the Blair paper. This was, I'm talking 20 years ago, 30 years, actually about 35 years ago. And he's holding this thing, and it was just the biggest smile on his face. It was bigger than his head. It was just unreal. So have I found one like that yet? No. I have found some really big ones. I always say I want to save one or pickle it in a jar or we eat it right away. I'll take a picture and we'll just go with that. So that's it. So, and if you try to follow me, those police officers there will arrest you. All right, any other questions? grab a card from me. Check it out if you have any questions. Check out our website. I did bring some Morel mesh bags today. If anyone wants to purchase one, they can purchase one, or you can get them on the website. And I've got a couple of sticks if anyone's interested in that. Otherwise, morelmushroomsupply.com. Oh, I'm sorry. Happy hunting. Don't put a GPS on my car. Thanks, everybody.